My name is Ken Murphy, and my main job right now is president of NSS of North Texas, the chapter in Texas that's responsible for Waco to the Red River. It's a large area, but we're focused in the DFW Metroplex. I'm also a member of the Moon Society, and I'm running for president of that organization right now. So I'm always looking for new members and people that can vote for me. Because if no one votes for me, I don't get the job. So I'm very much trying to get involved with that. I've got some unusual space background in that I'm an ISU alumnus. I have a Master of Space Studies cum laude from 2001. I call that my own personal space odyssey. I also worked at the NASA Academy, which is another interesting network of young space people. So that's a great network to be associated with. And then I was also in the Space Generation Forum at the United Nations NewSpace 3 conference. And out of the Space Generation Forum came things like Yuri's Night, the Space Generation Advisory Council, World Space Week, and other things like that. So, but apparently I'm a dinosaur now for the Space Generation folks because I was at the founding conference. So I'm one of the old guys now, you know, which is kind of hurts because I'm Generation X, and you know, I'm still one of the youngsters, but I'm already a dinosaur. So as far as other background goes, I'm an Air Force brat, lived more places than, you know, we have time to name. I've also traveled extensively, lived in Europe, traveled to Asia and New Zealand and other places, and always try to visit space-themed stuff wherever I go. So help keep things interesting. I'm in the process of helping the Boy Scouts update the Space Exploration Merit Badge pamphlet. And a huge section of that is about the space shuttle. And it's like, okay, you know, we can't keep all of this. We need to keep some, but, you know, frankly, we need to talk about what's coming next. What is the future? Because that's what the Boy Scouts are going to be focused on. And so, unfortunately, in part, the shuttle just becomes an entry in the historic missions portion of the merit badge pamphlet. But it is a chance to talk about new stuff. Yeah, it's a very exciting project, and I've got other NSS chapters like NSS Austin and NSS Houston helping out as well. So, you know, it is definitely a team effort. So, and luckily that's not going to be updated till next year. They're having some issues where the people they would send the copy to review, you know, like the real authorities, we help put together the text, and then they send it to the real authorities to vet it and all of that. And a lot of those guys are going away, retiring, disappearing, resigning from their jobs and going somewhere else. And so they're having a hard time with the verification part of the process. And some of the stuff we're talking about, I mean, I've got a table in there of launchers and crew vehicles and how many tons they are, how many passengers they'll carry, and all of that to try to keep it focused on the future.
You gave a talk yesterday. Tell us about that.
The talk that I gave was called A Roadmap to Cislunar Space. The genesis behind that idea is that people think of the Earth and they think of the Moon, and they're almost like separate objects, and there's really nothing else to consider. And you know, as an outreach advocate, you know, I'm trying to educate people about what there is that's important and interesting about space. And outlining what there is in cislunar space helps people to realize that, you know, this is already a field of endeavor that we're already in, but there are assets up there that have value, there's activity up there that contributes to the economy, and there's things up there that people don't really know or think about or associate with, you know, the whole network of activity out to the Moon. So cislunar space is derived from the Latin word cis, CIS, which means on the near side of or bounded by. And lunar, of course, is our moon, and so it talks about the space bounded by the moon's orbit, which is really where most of our space activities, especially human spaceflight, have occurred so far in history. So I'll lay out, you know, here are the rockets, these are how we get to orbit, and the different ones we have and what their capabilities are. This is low Earth orbit, the first step out into space. Here are the activities that go on there and the kinds of economic activity, social activity, natural resource activity, things like that. From LEO, we step it out to geosynchronous orbit, well known as the telecommunications orbit, but there's other things to do there as well. Space solar power is something that I'm a particular advocate of. From there, I step out to the Lagrange point, the Earth-Moon L1, which you're hearing more and more about these days. It's not a new topic. If you go back in the literature, you can find discussions of L1, but it was always a marginal topic. You know, there's the moon and there's the Earth, and you know that's really the main thing. And L1, yes, it's an interesting phenomenon, but you know, no one could really define an application for it. Although the 1986 report that Sally Ride was associated with talked about Lagrange as a spaceport, not just to the moon, but to other destinations. That's 1986. So I mean, L1 is not a new phenomenon, but more and more people, and I think especially the younger people, are looking and seeing what it can contribute, and they're looking at a larger network of activity than just things like Earth to Mars, or Earth to the moon, or Earth to an asteroid. You know, there's other contexts to consider, and they're looking at those larger contexts. So L1 is very important to kind of outline all the different things and possibilities and opportunities you have there. And then from there I step to the moon and, you know, kind of give some background on the moon, largely in the context of science, the materials that are there, kinds of engineering opportunities and challenges we face there, and why we're going there, and the kinds of things that we want to do there. And so the point of the presentation is to give people a more holistic view of what there is between the Earth and the moon, and why this is, all of this stuff that we're talking about at this conference is not really science fiction. The groundwork is there. The activity is there. We need to step it up to another level, establish transportation networks, just like we've established them here on Earth. You know, people are like, well, there's no material, you know, how are you going to make all this stuff on the moon when there's nothing there? But the entire planet, Earth, at one point was a greenfield development, to use the real estate term, where you just have grounds. And the only value that's there is what you, as a human, create there. And so, you know, we're finding fewer and fewer greenfield developments here on Earth, you know, except you tear down a building and build a new one. But on the moon, you've got gray fields. And it's an open book. And the machinery that we ship there and establish as the basics, and I think 3D printers are going to be a big part of that for making parts and components and that sort of thing. And the kids, they love 3D printers. They all know about the 3D printers. It's really wild to see. You know, it helps to show that, you know, we can do this stuff. It's not beyond the realm of possibility. And, you know, hopefully as more and more people are really aware of what all is going on out there, more and more activity will happen. Interestingly, I gave the same presentation to a elementary school astronomy club last week. Same material, I kind of stepped it down a level to more address at a level that they would really grasp. But what was interesting was that afterwards, the parents that were in attendance came up and they said, that was just mind-blowing. I had no idea about all this stuff. You know, and the kids were like, wow, that's really cool. You know, their minds were stretched. The grown-ups, their minds were blown because they had never seen any of this stuff. It's not on the news, it's not in the media, it's not easy to find websites where you can find this knowledge, but it is out there. You really got to look for it. And so I try to gather that together and, you know, present it as a comprehensive package to just show just how important all this stuff is and what we can do. We can address resource concerns. We can address economic concerns. It's a new industrial domain. I'd like to see the United States as a leader in that domain, but of course it is a global domain. And as a graduate of International Space University, I recognize that there are people all over the world that are working on these activities, and I salute that. I think it's fantastic, and I look forward to the competition and the challenge. You know, it's not a competition based on rancor or, you know, ideological differences or anything like that. It's that, you know, it's almost like the Oklahoma Sooners. You've got an open state, and people want to rush in there and develop it and establish themselves and start doing things and creating value and families and societies and towns and cultures and all of that stuff. So we're so close to it. We're so close, and hopefully we can make it happen.